What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Logisticalstyles coming at you with another video, and we have a lot to talk about, so let's just get right into it. Welcome back YouTube. Like I said, we got a lot to talk about. You may notice there's a different setup in front of me. The Rane 12s are gone, they packed up and they are done. I had to let them go after 3 years of working with the first Rane 12 that I bought up until the MK2 that I bought a little while ago, like the year before last. And last year I bought this mixer, this Rane 70. Well, I've had a lot of issues with the random speeding out of control. I've sent decks back to Rane to have them repaired, and the issue still arises. And I've replaced the USB cable, the issue still arises, so I had to let it go. It happened to me during a gig and it was embarrassing, so I got, you know, a reputation on stake here, so I can't just be coming out with equipment that I cannot rely on. So put them up on eBay, put them up for sale, let them go. I still have one left that's I've got a prospective buyer, but I'm not trying to troubleshoot anymore. It could be me, it could be my setup. I doubt it because I've played at different locations and had it happen, but it's time for me to move on. So as you see, I now have turntables. These are not Technic 1200s. These are the Reloop 7000 MK2, and I'm loving them so far. I'll do a review on them later. It's not really a new product. They've been out, I think, like since 2016 or so, maybe around that time. But they are pretty much the best turntable you can get out right now, bang for your buck. The best turntable you can get outside of a Technics 1200 or 1210 or a used one, but I wanted a set of brand new decks. So I still have my 1200s. They're just hooked up in the living room for us to play records around the house. But for using them for gigs and for doing videos and stuff, I needed a good solid pair of decks, and I'm loving them so far. They're working out perfectly, no issues. There's a couple of things I have to get used to coming from the Rane 12 and coming from other controllers, but definitely happy with my purchase for the Reloops. In the middle, you see I have my Rane 70 back. I got it back from Rane. I had sent it out for a repair because I had two issues. One, the right channel, the main output, would not put out a signal when using Serato. If I played regular vinyl, it worked perfectly fine. I did a test with that. I changed my cables. I changed the decks I used. I changed the speakers I used, but it happened to me twice at a gig. The first time I didn't realize it was the mixer. I thought it was my outboard mixer that was giving me trouble. So I ended up, in both instances, I ended up just hooking up the left speaker and then daisy chaining to my other speaker. So I was playing, not how I normally set stuff up, but it worked and I was able to get through both gigs with no problem. Once I got the mixer home, I did some investigating, testing, comparison, and I realized that it was the mixer, the Rane 70, that was not putting out on the right channel. So I opened up a ticket with Rane and they gave me a shipping slip to send it back. Now I also mentioned to them, and they kind of knew about it. It's funny because when I called Rane to set up the repair, I ended up speaking to a DJ that I know from the Serato forums and from Facebook groups, and he already was familiar with my complaint about the screen. And that's the second issue that I'm going to get into right now. The screen on the 72, whenever I would engage the effects and turn the depth knob, the display on the screen would start scrolling up, and it doesn't affect the sound, it doesn't affect the way it plays back, but it does kind of throw you off when you do rely on the screen for a little bit of information such as your BPM. So it's really annoying when at 1 minute the BPM is down at the bottom, then it's in the middle, then it's up top, and you're not even seeing when it's changing like that. So that was a problem. And when I called Rane, the rep that answered, he was familiar with my problem. He included that information on the ticket. When I shipped this mixer out to Rane, I also included a note that I typed up explaining everything that I've gone through with it and the problems I'm having. I specifically mentioned the screen problem. I actually did a YouTube video about this. If you look in the history, there's a video about the issue. What ended up happening is 2 weeks later, yesterday, the mixer arrived back, and the first thing I tested was the screen. And you know what? It's still doing the same thing. So at this point, I don't know what to do. The mixer sounds good. It's playing out both channels now, so I'm happy with that, but the screen issue is a pain. And to be honest, I'm very, very disappointed in Rane's, just period, everything. The MK1 Rane 12, the MK2 Rane 12, this Rane 70, I've had to send them all back for issues. Issues that are not just isolated to me, but are also known and spoken about by other people on the Serato forums, the Rane forums, the Rane Facebook groups, and even on my own personal Facebook page. It is a known issue, and I really wish they would address it. It's not a firmware issue. So a lot of people have been posting, well, you got to send it in for a firmware update. The first time I sent my 12 in, they specifically told me it was not a firmware. It was a motor issue. I know they told you originally that, send it in, it's a firmware upgrade that can only be done at the factory. Well, I sent it in, and the response I got specifically was, it's not a firmware issue, it's a motor issue. They had to replace the motor. So enough with the firmware. The next thing that Rane asked me to do was to calibrate the pitch. They told me, calibrate the pitch and this will fix your problem. I calibrated the pitches. I've been calibrating pitch on these decks since I got them. If you remember my earlier video when I had the MK1 originally, I had problems with the pitch not matching up with what was showing on the screen. It was just out of whack. I couldn't find a way to calibrate. I had to contact Rane, and they told me how to do the calibration. I made a video on it. A lot of people have watched that video, so I'm familiar with calibrating Rane 12s. And the process for the MK2 was slightly different than the process for the MK1, but I did it for both decks, replaced cables, still had the problem. So Rane, you really dropped the ball on your customer service when it comes to fixing issues. And I'm just really, really irritated at my wit's end with the fact that I sent this out to Rane for an issue that was listed specifically, and they sent it right back to me with the same issue. And the part that really irritates me is back in the day when you sent something out to Rane, they would send you a sheet telling you what was done, what was replaced. They sent me nothing except except the mixer, wrapped in bubble wrap, and the cables. There was no invoice, there was no statement of repair, there was nothing telling me what was done or what they found when they had my mixer for 2 weeks. So this is just the update. This is where I am right now. I'm gonna continue to use this mixer because the sound is good, and I'll just have to ignore the little screen. I have had plenty of other mixers that didn't have a little screen on it, so that's where we are right now with my Rane journey. And it's really frustrating because, as I mentioned in other videos, Rane has always been the holy grail for me as far as battle DJ equipment, scratch DJ equipment. And I spent over $3,000 on a whole Rane setup, and none of it has worked as advertised or as promised. So we might be looking back at the Pioneer stuff, because my Pioneer SB3 working just fine and has been covering me, getting me through these gigs that I've had to do while my equipment was unreliable or out for repair. My Newmark Scratch has been getting me through gigs as well. The lower budget gear has seemed to be working much better than this expensive flagship gear. Hopefully this will give you some insight or something to think about. And I know what's coming in the comments. I know it's coming. I've had my Rane stuff for 5 years, X years, and never had a problem. That's great. This is for people that are experiencing problems with their gear and at least need to have the confidence of knowing that they're not alone. Everything I've discussed with issues with my decks and my mixer has been documented and spoken about by other DJs. So this is just a warning. This is just informational. I'm not gonna try to bash a company or you know, speak too maliciously about the issue, but I just want to state the facts. So this is where we are. Keep watching. Very soon there's another video coming up, and I got some more gear I'm going to do some reviews on and talk about it as well. So hopefully this wasn't too long of a video, a little bit of information. Keep watching, keep subscribing, and we'll be back soon. Peace.